No one, I didn't make it. Use pointer to object concept one. That one I
Pointer
didn't
to
try.
object.
Today I will.
Okay, okay, fine.
Yeah.
And apart
Today I
from
will.
that, everything is done.
Everything is done.
Okay, and what about operator overloading of new and delete? Have you tried it? It's working.
Oh, operator new and delete. No, I didn't do these two also.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay, today I will do. Finish.
Okay. And how about friend functions? Are you clear about that?
I have one doubt. Like,
Okay, because in today's class we'll discuss only friend functions. So you can
no.
ask your doubt. Yeah.
So if we are using friend, like we can access all the private and
Correct, correct,
all
right. But
public
yes,
variables, right?
correct. But you are accessing it directly, right? So directly it's not possible because class have some restriction privacy. Correct. So I will show you, right, how exactly it will work. Right. So we will
Yeah,
do some
yesterday you
practical.
said one.
Right. So when we're talking about friend function, right? So it's possible to grant access, right, to all the public and private protected members. So we can have friend function as well as we can have friend classes. Both are valid, right? So when we are friend
Okay.
function,
Yeah.
right? So I'm taking this simple example here. Right, so I'm declaring my class in which I'm declaring two variables, integer a and b, right? And inside this public function, as of now, just forget about friend. I'm just commenting it out.
Okay. Okay.
So this is our class function. So this class function definition, I'm just setting the values of a and b. So I use the function set a and set underscore a comma b, right? And which
Okay.
here I'm assigning a is equals to a and b is equals to j inside this constructor. So it's a parameterized constructor that I'm using. Sorry, it's a function set ab that I'm using. And this belongs to my class and I'm using scope resolution operator because I'm using it outside the class.
Outside the class. Okay.
Correct? So here I'm
Okay.
defining another function integer sum. Now within this sum, I want to access all the variables of this class, my class. Correct? Then in that case, I need to use object. Correct? So here I'm passing my class and access the object that I'm using. So correct. So this is an argument with which we are passing x, which is an object of my class. Correct. And what I'm trying to do here, I'm just returning the sum of x dot a then x dot b. These are nothing but member functions of a and b of this class.
Okay.
Correct. A simple program, right? Now when I'm accessing this my class, right? So this is object belongs to my class, correct? So for the security purpose, right? So what we need to do, we need to declare this friend class over here, friend function over here. So what we are telling to this particular class is that this is a friend function. It's not actually a class member. It's actually a friend of this class.
Okay. Okay.
It's actually friend of this class, but not a class member.
Okay.
If I don't declare it, right, so compiler will give error because of security restriction. It will not directly allow this particular class variables to be declared over here, class objects, and we cannot access it directly if you're not declaring it plain. Right? Because class has some restriction. So all the code, I mean, initially you remember, right? So we have discussed that particular encapsulation, you remember? So all the code and everything
Yeah.
that belongs to that class. If the outside function is defining, then we need to declare it as friend. Otherwise, it will give an compiler error. Correct?
But when we are deriving the class, we are accessing through the objects, then.
Which one?
When if we are deriving class, like if you are using inheritance.
Yeah, inheritance, that's the different concept, right? You're inheriting all the characters. That means all the variables are also inherited in the derived class. Correct? So inheriting is a different concept. This function is totally outside. I just want to access this particular object of this class, right? So directly I don't have access. So instead, what we need to do, we need to create a friend function of this one. So that class will understand this is our friend, so we can share the variable, so we can share the access.
Okay.
Got it? So let me just implement the same example so you will understand and compiler better, right? C, then turbo C++, then we have TC-Doc. So file, new. Okay. So hash include stream.h and then hash include Kunio.h. Fine. Now here I'm defining class, my class. right? Or I am defining class A,
Mm.
correct?
Okay.
And here I'm using integer A, then integer B. So
B.
both are private
Okay.
variables. Now inside the public function, I'm defining void set underscore values, and here I can pass integer A comma integer B. Now I'm using the same parameters name, right, that we have for class members. In that case, I need to use this
Mm-hmm.
operator, correct?
Okay. Okay. Mm.
This where's that operator? This A is equals to A, then this B is equals to
B.
B, correct? So this I have
Mm.
defined, correct? So this is
Okay.
actually a class
Mm.
member in which I am defined,
Mm.
correct? Now outside this class, I'm defining a simple function. So that is not a class member.
Okay.
The simple function that we are
No.
using in C language, right? So what it will do
Okay.
is we are just returning the sum. So I just want sum of these
Mm.
numbers, right? So I will say integer
Okay.
sum,
Okay. Mm.
sum, then I
Okay.
will
Then.
pass. Yeah. So here I want to use the class member, right? So I want to get the access of A and B. I need to return the sum of A and B,
Okay.
correct? So before that, what I will
Mm.
do is I will just write the main function so it will be easy to understand. Void main, correct? Now inside this void main,
Mm.
I'm declaring one object A, correct?
Mm. Mm.
A obj. Now inside,
Okay.
right, A obj. So this will call the by default constructor, right? So we have it by compiler.
Okay.
Now we will say
Mm.
obj dot, then we can say set underscore values.
Okay.
Now I will
Okay.
pass 2 comma 3.
Mm.
Correct. Now
Okay.
I have an
Mm.
object in which I'm passing values 2 comma 3. So this will be assigned to
2,
A and this will
3.
be assigned to B. Correct.
Okay.
Now I just
Mm.
want to get the
Mm.
sum of 2 and 3, or I just want to get the sum of this
Okay.
object values. Correct. So instead of declaring these
Okay. Mm.
variables and summing inside this, what I will do is I will simply call this function cout. Correct. And I will write sum,
Mm.
and inside this I will simply pass this object.
Object. Okay.
Correct. So here I will declare the
Mm.
same thing. I will declare my class name. It's nothing but data type. Correct. Simply say
Oh.
obj and whatever we have, right?
Okay. Mm.
I can use the same name or I can use a different name. Correct.
Different.
So I
Okay.
can use it here.
Mm.
Now I'm simply writing get ch. So see, it's working or it's giving error. Right. So Alt plus F9. It's giving me warnings. Function should return a value. Object
And
cannot
it's not
assign a
written.
used. Okay. Right. 1 second. So here
Written A
here
plus
return a value. So what we will do is we will say return,
written
right,
A plus B.
obj dot a plus obj dot b. Now it's
B.
fine.
Okay. Mm.
Correct. This is done. This is done. So Alt plus F9. Now it's giving error. What is the error? A is not accessible and B is not accessible. Even though we are passing the object, right? Here we are simply passing
Mm.
obj. It should work ideally, right? Because we are passing object and it should
Mm.
get the values obj a and
Mm.
obj b. But it's not giving me a proper result. Instead, it's showing error. What is the reason? Because
Mm.
because of class restriction of encapsulation, right? So it's not allowing me. So in that case, what I will
Okay.
do is
Okay.
I will simply write this function inside this. So I just need to tell the compiler that this is a friend function. Even
Friend
though,
function.
yeah,
Okay.
it's actually a friend function of the of this particular class. So I will say friend integer sum, and I will simply write whatever value it can pass a then obj.
Okay. Okay.
Now I say alt plus F9 success. It's working.
Mm.
Now
Mm.
control
Okay.
F9. It's giving result 5.
Mm.
I understood the concept of friend function.
Okay. Understood. Mm.
The simple class I have defined. Right, so I'm just
Mm.
saving it. Friend. Fine.
Mm. Okay.
Any confusion over here, you can ask me. Right, so just for
No, no
security
worries. That's
restriction, we
understood.
have this friend function, right? So we cannot directly access the
Mm.
objects because of
Okay.
encapsulation property. Then any outside function we need to declare as friend function within a class so that it will access the private variables of that class. Correct? Till the
Okay.
point I'm not using the
Mm.
private variables, right? If I comment this section return, so it will not give any error. See, it's showing only warnings.
Mm.
But when I'm trying to access
Mm.
any private functions or any private class members, then it's giving me error.
Mm. Okay.
Right? Got it? Any confusion?
Got it. If we
Yeah, tell me.
declare it as a friend, if we declare a class as a friend, then how it will work?
If you declare class as a friend, no, actually, see, whenever we are declaring two classes, right? So we cannot directly declare the class as a friend. So friend means that thing whose friend it belongs to, right? Correct? If I'm directly saying, that means
Correct.
you are saying like this, right? So if I declare friend class, right?
Another class, if we are declaring, no. Like in another class B, if class A is a friend of class B, then
Okay. So
yesterday's.
in that case, yeah, I will show you. We will go that further. Right? One by one, we will go. Fine. This you understood?
Okay. Understood.
Any confusion in this? So this is important
No
part.
confusion.
Confusion, right? Okay. So let's go back to sheet again. Right. So the simple example I've shown you, right? This we have covered. Right. And one more important thing, I think you have noticed it most probably. So here, when I'm calling this function, right, with the inside the main function, so I'm not using any object here, correct? Because this is not actually a
Correct.
class function, right? It's a
Class.
simple function, it's defined outside. So I'm not using any object over here to call this function, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So this we have seen now. Same function when we are talking about, right? So same outside function can be a part of a single class or multiple class, right? So as of now, we have seen just now, right? So we have defined a single class and this is a part of single class. Now we can have multiple class and the same function can operate in both classes, or it can be friend of both classes or multiple classes as well. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah. Because same functionality we can use in one function, same functionality we can use in other function also. Correct? Yeah. So this is a simple example I'm giving you for multiple classes, right? So what I'm trying to do here is there is some simple property I'm checking, right? So screen is visible or not when we need to set the status or when we don't need to set the status, right? So simple class I have. So two classes I'm using. So initially I'm using class C1, right? I'm setting the status in status, then public status status, and another function is there friend integer idle C1A and C2B. So here I'm using both C1A and C2B, right? So C1 is a class and C2 is also a class, right? This is a friend function. So when we are declaring any friend function, right? So inside there, so we need to mandatory pass the objects, correct? As we have seen, correct? So here I'm using C1A then C2B, but C2B definition is not defined yet. That's why I declared forward declaration. That means we are defining this definition after this class, correct? So always use forward declaration, correct? So this is the friend function. This is not actually a part of this particular C1 class, correct? So this we are defining it outside. Yeah. So similarly, we are defining class C2, right? We have same status, then set status, then friend idle. C1 is then C2B, correct? Now here I'm just using this particular set status of C1 and C2, correct? Then I'm simply using this function as a C function, integer idle. It will return simple definition. It doesn't belong to any class. So I'm not writing scope resolution operator in C1 or C2, correct? Because it's a friend function. Yeah. So I'm declaring C1A, C2B, and it will just check the status. If A dot is status or B dot is status. If anyone is set, it will return value 0. Otherwise, it will return the value 1. Correct? Return 0 means true. Return 1 means false. Correct? That's a simple thing I'm using. So inside this void main function, I'm declaring two objects, C1 of X and C2 of Y. That means X and Y are objects. X belongs to C1 class and Y belongs to C2 class. Correct? I'm calling this function set status and I'm setting the value idle. Correct? Idle I have defined as a constant if you have checked in initially level. Right? So these I have defined idle equals to 0 and in use equals to 1. That means the screen is in use or idle. Correct? Simple example I'm setting. Correct? So I'm just initially I'm setting the value to 0, 0. That means screens are idle. Correct? Then simply I'm using this function, friend function idle, and I'm passing x comma y. Correct? So here it will check A dot status or B dot status. If anyone is 0, you know OR operator, right? So yeah, so 1 0 the combination will be output will be 1. If 0 0 the output will be 0. So it will just like simply addition we have. Correct? If 1 when the output is 1 0 0 then output is 0. Yeah. So it will check the value and print the value, right? Again we will set the status to in use, then we will save the value. The simple program I am using, conditions I am just checking it out, right? Simple program it is. Any confusion in this?
No confusion.
right? So simple program in which I'm using the same function, right, as a friend function to both the classes, C1 and C2.
C2. Okay.
Correct? Got it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Got it.
So by this way, we can use the same function as a friend function in multiple classes. It's not actually restricted to
Multiple
one or
classes.
two lengths,
Okay.
right? So we can have
Okay.
multiple classes as well. Any confusion?
No confusion.
Okay. So now third point is, let's say I have one class C1, right? Inside that I have one class member function, correct? So similarly like here,
Okay.
integer idle C2b. So here
Okay.
we have one class C1. Inside this I have two member functions, set status and integer idle C2b. Here I am not declaring any friend, right? So this is actually a member of class C1, correct?
Class.
Okay. So here, what I'm trying to do is now I'm declaring class C2. Now inside this class C2, I want this C1 member function to be a friend.
Okay.
You got it? C1 we have two member
Got it.
functions, void set status and integer idle C2b.
Integer
Correct?
idles.
Yeah. So these two member functions we have. But now I want the second member function, integer idle, to be a friend function of class C2. So I will declare friend and I will declare integer.
Okay.
Then this function. Now this function belongs to C1 class, correct? Because it's a member function. It's not exactly a predefined function or we have defined it outside, correct? So we need to define scope resolution and C1. And inside this we are passing C2 object. So similarly I have defined it here.
Okay.
Definition should be same, correct?
Okay.
You got the point? Any confusion over here?
Got it. No confusion.
Yeah. Right. So here I'm simply setting the set status C1 and C2. Just now we have seen right above. Same program functionality, whatever we have. Now here I'm defining the object. Now this idle belongs to C1 class, correct?
C1 class.
Yeah, correct. Because previously it was a free function. We are not defining it within a class. It was a friend function. So we are not using scope resolution operator and class name. But now
Class name.
it's a member of C1 class that I'm utilizing as a friend function in C2. Correct? So here when I'm declaring a function name, then here I'm using scope resolution operator and the class name. So here I will define the same definition. Correct? And here when you're calling the status, I'm not using here status a dot status, correct? Because status belongs to this operator, correct? Current object which is calling, correct? And it's nothing but a C1 object. So I'm simply using status, and for C2b I'm using b dot status, correct? And I'm comparing the value by OR operator. If it's both are equals to 1 or something like that, it will return 0, others will return 1. Similarly, when we are going to main function, again I'm declaring both objects. X belongs to C1 and Y object belongs to C2. Then again I'm setting the status to idle, correct? Then again I'm using the same thing, I'm printing it. I'm just passing x dot idle 1. Now I'm simply passing a single variable because X is calling it. And it's when we are checking idle, so it's a member function of C1, right? So it should be called by object of C1. Correct? So I'm just calling here by x dot idle 1 and I'm simply passing by.
Okay.
You understood the difference?
Yeah.
Correct? Because previously it was a free function. It was not a member of any class. Now it's a member of class in this one. There's nothing but C1 and we have object X. So X will call this function idle. Inside this, I am passing the another object of C2 class that is nothing but Y.
Okay.
Correct? And I'm setting the status. I'm just printing it.
Okay.
Correct? The simple example that I have shown you, right? Any confusion in this?
Okay. No confusion. No.
Are you clear about friend functions now? How it will work and how it will behave? You understood, right? Yeah.
Understood.
Okay. So now we are going for friend classes. Okay. So now I've defined two classes. First one is class 2 values and another is class minimum. Right? So inside these two values, I will get the input of two values, and in this class minimum, I will get the minimum of these two values A and B. So these classes are dependent, as just like yesterday I told you, right? Area and room. Remember? Yeah. So area we are utilizing the x and y value, width and height value when we are defining the area of the room. Right? So area is a different class and room is a different class. Now similarly here we have two values in which we are defining A and B values, and the another class minimum in which we are finding the minimum of A and B of class 2 values. So these are dependent. You understood?
Understood.
Yeah. So here I'm defining one constructor. Here I'm passing integer I comma j. So I'm assigning the values to a and b. Correct. And here
Okay.
I'm declaring minimum class as function because minimum will utilize this a and b. Correct.
Okay.
Because minimum we need to find it a and b. So we need to declare friend class as minimum inside this two values so that minimum will access these two variables.
Okay.
Got the concept? How we can declare minimum
Yeah.
and which one we need to declare? Right? Okay, the
Okay.
class which are utilizing the resources that needs to be declared as
Mm.
friend class.
Friend
Because
class.
minimum is
Okay.
utilizing a and b to find the minimum values of a and b. So in that case, minimum we
Okay.
need to define as a friend class to two values.
Okay.
You got the concept?
Yeah, got it.
Right, so that is pretty much easy, right? So I mean, which is source and which is destination, we just need to define. So whoever is utilizing the resources, these are nothing but a friend class we need to define, right? So minimum will be a friend class so that it
Okay.
access a and b. Correct. So I'm defining
Okay.
class minimum over
Understood.
here, and I'm public. I'm simply say integer minimum, and I'm just passing this two values of x because I want to access these variables a and b. So I need to use a object.
Okay.
Correct. So similarly, we have seen in friend functions when I need to utilize the values of a particular object, then we need to declare that as a parameter. Got it?
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Right. So similarly, here we are defining. See, here m is capital and here m is small. If I write as capital M, then what it will be? It will be a
It's will
constructor.
construct
If I'm
parameter
declaring it as
construct.
small m, right? So you know, right? C language and C++ language are case sensitive, so both are different.
Cases.
Correct. So capital M is
Okay.
different, small m is different. So it will be a member function now, right?
Okay.
Minimum, and I'm writing it belongs to minimum class, correct? And I'm just passing two values of x, so that it will access the values of a and b. Otherwise, it will give an error,
Okay.
correct? If I'm not declaring it as a friend class. So similarly, I'm returning the small value. So here I'm declaring this object and I'm passing 10, 20. So it will set the values with the help of constructor. Correct? Now I'm calling this
Correct.
minimum m and an object declared for minimum class and I'm simply writing C out. Then here I'm calling m dot minimum because it's a member function of minimum class. Correct?
Minimum.
And here I'm passing obj, which is nothing but two values of, I mean, object of two values.
10.
Correct? So it will
Okay.
get the values and will print the output. There's nothing but 10 it will print.
Okay.
Correct, with the help of this ternary operator.
Understood.
If you check 10 is less than 20, this is true, it will print 10. Otherwise, it will print x dot b is nothing but 20. Correct. So here the value 10 is less than 20, this is true, so it will print 10.
Okay.
You got the concept of friend classes now? Any confusion over here?
Uh,
So understood,
got
right?
it.
What is the concept of friend classes? Then we
Understood.
need to use the
Yeah.
resources of the other class. Then the second class will be a friend class.
Friend class. Okay.
This is a very basic example which will understand, I mean, which will clear your concept, right? How a friend class we are using and what is the utilization we have. You understood?
Yeah,
Any
understood.
confusion you have, you can ask.
No confusion.
Sure?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So now operator overloading using a friend function. Correct. You remember, I think before 2 days we have discussed type conversions in which we have defined base to class members, then class to base and class to class. Remember, right? So for base to class, we are using some constructor, right? And for class to base, right? So we are using some different constructor. Sorry, class to base, we are using some constructor. Base to class, we are using operator something is there, right? Operator float, operator int. Remember? Then finally from class to class, I told you, right? So we can use either copy constructor or we can either use a equals to operator overloading.
Correct.
Correct. Now, if the data types are same, nothing but let's say we have one class and I'm just using operator overloading, right? Obj is equals to obj2 plus obj1. Correct.
Okay.
It will work
Correct.
fine. But what if we have different data types? If we are defining obj2 as member of a, I mean obj2 as object of class 1 and obj2
Okay.
as object of class 2, then data types will be different, right? So similarly, yeah, right. So in that case also we need to go for friend functions, just like here, right? Because data types are different, I'm passing two values in class minimum.
Okay.
You got the concept? When data types are different or classes of objects are different, and when we are using values to assign or something like that, so in that case we need to use a friend function, because otherwise it will not give access, right? It will give throw a compiler error when you're trying to access the private members. Correct? So you need to tell the compiler that this particular class is a friend of this class, so that I can access both variables and I can assign the values.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah, got it.
The first important function that we have, you can note it down, right? So that is important. You
Yeah,
can ask
yeah,
an
I
interview.
noted.
Yeah. So another thing we have is operator overloading using a friend functions. So it's a simple concept, right? I'm just taking the same example that we have seen, right? Class location, then I'm using longitude, latitude. In public, I'm declaring a simple default constructor. Then I'm using a
Okay.
parameters constructor, right, to initialize the value. Then void show, I'm just simply printing the value longitude and latitude, whatever the values we have, right? So here we were using simple, right? So LOC we are using nothing but class data type that we have declared class name, correct? Just forget about friend as of now. Just consider this friend, right? So LOC I'm returning, I'm using location OP1 and OP2. I'm just passing both the variables and I'm adding them and I'm returning the value.
Okay.
Correct? So what we were trying to do initially, you remember? We were simply writing LOC, then I am simply writing operator plus, then I'm simply passing a single object. So that is nothing but location OP2. Because one object is calling it. You remember when I'm saying obj1 plus obj2. Then how it will behave internally? It will just like that. obj1 dot operator plus, this is the function name, then it will simply pass obj2. Correct. So this simple definition when we are not using a friend function, but when we are using a friend function, right? So in that case, what we need to do, it's a friend, right? It's like not actually a class member. So this particular function will not be called by a object. Correct. Got my point? So in that case, I need to pass both object, calling object as well as passing object. Correct. Because it's a friend. So it's not a member of class. So it cannot be called by an object. Correct. That's why we need to pass both objects. You understood my point? So this is the difference. When I'm declaring a friend class, I'm declaring a friend function, sorry. So when I'm declaring this is a friend function, so in that case this will not be a member of a class, so it will not called by a object. So in that case I need to pass calling as well as this one, both op1 as well as op2, both. Similarly, as we have seen, obj1 plus obj2 when we are using simple this operator, right? So in that case, what we'll do, it will write obj1 dot operator plus, so it will call this function and pass the obj2. But now when I'm declaring a friend object, right? So friend function, what it will do, it's not a part of it's not a part of a class, or it's not a member of this particular class. So it will not be called with the help of object. So we need to pass both object, right? Source and destination both. You understood? That is the difference. Now functionality is almost same, whatever we are writing. So here I'm not defining any, right? So I'm simply writing operator plus. So there's no scope resolution operator because it doesn't belongs to any class. It's a friend function. So it's just like a simple C function that we have seen above, right? So it's a simple operator plus function. I'm returning the value and that's it. And simply when we are calling inside the main function, right? So it will simply say, we will simply write obj1 is equals to obj1 plus obj2. So functionality will be same. Right? So internally how it will process now? It will be like operator plus, and here it will pass obj1 comma obj2. Correct? So internally it will process like this. So it will be a function operator plus. It's a free floating function, doesn't belongs to any class, and inside this I'm passing obj1 and obj2. As these are friend of this class's location, right? So it will not be a problem to access this particular objects and variables associated with it. Got the concept?
Okay, understood.
Yeah, right. So apart from that, I just give you simple examples. This location operator, these simple for member functions, right, that we have already seen. Correct? So it will simply return these values here. So here I'm saying operator minus, and this is the member function. So that's why I used scope resolution operator then class name.
Class name.
So it's the member function. This is the friend function. Apart from that, all are member functions. So similarly, we can now we can make these also friend, right? So simply I will write friend, and here I need to use two variables instead of one, just like we are using here, right? Because it will be a friend member after that. It will not be a class member if I declare it as friend. Correct? And similarly, when we are saying location operator plus plus, so here empty braces, right? Because we are just using like this obj1
Plus
plus
operator.
plus, correct? So because this is a calling operator, how it will behave? It will be like obj1 dot operator plus plus, and I'm saying like this. Internet will call like this. But when I'm using friend over here, right? So correct. So it will not be a class member. So it will not be called with the help of this object. Then we need to pass it
Object.
explicitly. So I'm saying location op1.
Okay.
Got it? So now today you will practice over this, right? Just convert all these functions to friend functions, whatever we have discussed, right? Equal to minus plus plus multiplication divide. I just convert it into friend function. Any confusion in this? I think it's pretty much straightforward, right? And simple also. Correct? Right. So just get the concept. That's because it's not a member of a class, right? So that's why we are not using it. We are not calling with the help of object. We need to pass explicitly objects inside as parameter.
Okay.
Any confusion over here?
No confusion.
Sure?
Sure.
Okay. Right, so it will work for different class types as well as in class to class conversion. Just now I told you, right? So when we're declaring two class objects, right? So when we're doing, we are making any conversion, right? So in that case, we need to use this friend functions because one should be able to access the member of another one for conversion, right?
Okay.
In that case, we need to use friend function. We need to use the pass the value like this, or friend classes we need to use. Correct?
Okay.
Yeah. So second thing, friend operator functions adds flexibility, right? So as of now, we have seen like this: obj1 is equals to obj2 plus obj3.
Obj3.
Correct? So how it will behave internally? It will say obj2 dot operator plus, then it will pass inside obj3. Correct? Now if I'm saying obj1 is equals to obj2 plus 100 instead of object, now how it will behave?
Directly.
It will say obj2 dot operator, because plus is already defined, right? Here what it will check obj2, then we'll check the plus, then we'll simply call this operator plus function. Operator plus, and here I need to pass, instead of this I will pass integer of x, because I'm getting the value instead of object. Here I'm using a value. Correct? So that will behave perfectly, right? Now what I will say like this: obj1 is equals to 100 plus obj2. Now will it work?
No.
No, right? Because 100 it will consider as first point. Now 100 dot operator plus, then it will pass simply obj2. So is 100 an object? It will give error.
No.
As 100 is not an object. As 100 is not an object. Correct? So that is the issue with operator overloading. If you exchange the parameter, exchange the position, right, of integer value and object, then it will throw an error, because 100 is not an object. It's a simple integer value. Correct? So for this functionality, we are using this friend operators. Right? That is the important part. Correct? Similarly, I've defined here, if OB plus 100, that's a valid case. When I'm using 100 plus OB, that it will be an invalid case.
Invalid case.
Correct? So here I'm taking one example. So just to get this functionality done, right, we are using friend functions. Right, so how it will done? So I'll just show you, right? Similarly, I've declared longitude, latitude, same class. Correct? And here I'm printing the values. Now here, you remember, right, when I'm declaring any function as friend, so it will not be a member of a class. So it will not be called with the help of object. Correct? So this particular issue will get resolved directly over here. Because 100 is also a parameter, OB is also a parameter. Similarly, OB is also a parameter, 100 is also a parameter. So both we are passing over here. So I can write so location op1, then integer op2, and integer op1 and location op2. Because these functions are simply defined as C outside function, right? This is not a member function. Both are not member functions now. Both are not member functions now. Correct? So both are not member functions now, so it will not be called with the help of object. Simply we write operator plus here. Correct? So no class member, nothing. Simply I'll pass location op1 and integer value, and I'm getting the sum. Correct? So similarly, I can write the opposite thing. I can write integer op1 first, then location op2, and I'm get the sum. Fine? I will get the sum over here. Simply I will go to void main. I will declare object 3. Now obj1 3.show.show. So I'll get all the values printed. And what I'm trying to do is I'm simply writing obj1 is equals to obj2 plus 10. Correct? So both are valid. Either I can write in this way or either I can write in this way. So different definition will be called because 10 and ob2 will be a parameter. Correct? So how it will call operator plus, then it will call integer value, integer x, then comma obj. What is the value? obj2. Correct? So it will call the, you remember operator, oh, sorry, function overloading, remember, right? Right, so function overloading it will call. So it will call this one particular function. Now this will call operator plus, and inside this I'm calling obj, obj2, then comma integer x value. Right, so this will call the first function, this will call the second function. So by this our problem is solved. Correct? Any confusion over here you can ask. Now this is an important concept. They may ask you this question in interview.
No confusion.
Sure. That is very easy and simple, straightforward, right? So this is the advantage of friend functions. So similarly, you can have different advantages of friend functions because you're not bounded to call this function with the help of object. Correct? So current object you are not, yeah. So whatever object you're passing, you should have pass explicitly within the form of parameters. Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Okay. So I think we are good with friend functions and friend classes. Correct? So here I'm just taking one simple example. Simple constructor and destructor call, right? So let's say we have one class base, correct? Here I'm defining constructor base and destructor. So I'm simply printing the value constructor base and destructor base. Now class derived one. I'm using another class derived one and I'm inheriting class base. Now here I'm simply writing derived one and constructor and destructor for derived one class. Right? Now again I'm going to derived two class and I'm simply deriving public derived one. Right? So this class I'm inheriting. So it's a multi-level, correct? Just like grandfather, then father, then you. Fine. So class derived two, I'm deriving public derived one, then I'm simply writing destructor. Right, constructor and destructor definition. Now simply I'm creating object derived two. So how the constructor and destructor will be called? Remember I told you, so initially it will call the grandfather constructor, then father constructor, then destructor constructor. Now when destructing, the order will be reverse. Right? They'll call destructor 2, then destructor 1, then destructor base. Right? So let me show you it quickly, right? 1 second. So here I'm simply writing one class hash include iostream.h hash include conio.h. Fine. So here I'm defining class base. Inside this base class I'm defining one constructor. So constructor should always be in public, otherwise it will give compiler error. Right? So base I'm defining over here. And inside base I will simply write cout calling base class constructor. Correct? Now here I'm defining the destructor. So simply I need to use this tilt mark, then base. Yeah. So here I'm define cout. Sorry. Calling destructor. Sorry, base class destructor base. constructor. Fine.
Mm.
So our base class, now I'm saying class derived one, right? So here I'm inheriting it public.
Okay.
So I'm inheriting it publicly, correct?
Okay.
So here I'm simply, sorry, I think I pressed some key. Okay, one second, one second.
No, it's
Yeah. So here I will do the same thing, right? So here I'm defining the constructor derived one, and here I will write cout. Then I will write calling derived one class constructor. Fine. And now I'm defining the structure. So tilt mark, then the structure derived one. Correct. Now here I'm defining the same thing. Cout calling derived one class destructor. Correct. So here so I've defined grandfather and father, right? I'm trying to define now class derived two. Right. So I'm inheriting as public. Correct. And I'm defining it as derived one. So I'm
derived.
yeah. So I'm inheriting class derived one as derived one publicly. So here I think I forgot that. Sorry. I think 1 second. Class we have closed it or not? No, I guess, right? That should be okay.
And again that we have to declare public on this class derived one.
Correct. I think I forgot. Yes. Correct. Yeah. So class derived two. Correct. And I'm returning as public derived one. So derived one I'm declaring. Oh, sorry, I'm inheriting as publicly. Right. So here again I will write public. Correct. And instead I will write the same thing derived two. Right. So that will be a constructor. Right. So I will simply write cout calling derived to class constructor. And let me make it capital. That will be better to read. Okay. Right. So after this, I'm declaring again tilt mark except for destructor. So derived to and he will be cout calling derived to class destructor. Fine. So this is done. We'll check it. Okay. Calling derived to constructor destructor base class constructor destructor. Okay. Right. Now simply what I'm trying to do is inside void main function, I'll simply create one object. There is nothing but derived to. Derived to obj1. That's it. And I'll simply write get ch. When I'm calling this one, right, so it will defaultly call the constructor, correct? So when it's calling the constructor, right, so first constructor it will call of grandparent, right? Then it will call the parent constructor, then finally it will call its own constructor, right? So, but when it's destructing, right, so first it will destruct its own, then the father one, then grandfather one. Because just like a base parameter, when you are going to any building, right, so if you want to build any building, right, so how you will start? You will start from base, correct?
Base.
Right. The base you are constructing first floor, then second floor, then third floor. Now when I'm saying right to destroy a particular building, now how it will go? You will destroy the first floor, sorry, third floor, then second floor, then first floor. Correct? That is a simple concept we have. When we are constructing, we are going from first, second, third, then in destructing, we are going from third, then second, then one. It will be in sequence.
Okay.
Right? So when I'm saying alt plus F9, it's giving me error. What is the error? Expression syntax.
No, this public is telling mistake.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry. I used I. Okay. Success. Now I'm using alt plus F9. 1 second, let me use /n, right? So it will be better to read.
Okay.
Right, so I will use /n. You can use NL or you can use /n. Both are valid.
Okay.
NL is valid
Okay.
in C++ case. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you used it already, right? I have seen it yesterday. So NL means end line.
Online.
Just like /n, it means line feed. That means we are going to next line.
Okay.
Similarly, if we use /t, right? So it will be for tab spaces,
Tab.
right? And if you're using any sound, right? So I think there's some command /a or something is there you can use.
Okay.
I'm not using clear screen. Right? I think that should work now. Yeah. So calling base class constructor, derived type constructor, and derived to class. Still we are executing this program, right? So get ch point, it's stuck, right? So after get ch, it will be going to destruct. So when we hit enter, right?
Okay.
And if I use alt plus F5 to check the output, now it will call the destructor. So when we are constructing, it will be base, then derived one, then derived two. When we are destructing, it will be in reverse order. We'll go for third floor, then second floor, then base floor.
First. Okay.
Got it?
Yeah. Got it.
Any confusion over here?
No confusion.
Okay. Right. That last one, it's saying class derived, then it's using public base 2 and base 1. Okay, we'll do like this also. Public base 2 and base 1. Okay. So instead of saying public derived 1, then I will simply write here. What I will do is I will just comment out the section.
Okay.
Correct. And here I will say public derived 1, comma, public derived 2. I think syntax
Base.
is okay or it's different. 1 second. Public.
Public base.
It's okay. It's okay because we are using different class name, right? Correct. So see, when you're saying derived 2, so derived 2 is derived with the help of derived 1 and derived, public, base. Yeah,
Base.
sorry, public base. Correct. So these two classes I'm inheriting in derived 2 class. So how it will behave? Any idea? So firstly I'm deriving it, derived 1, and second I'm using base. Right. So let's see what is the output now. Alt plus F9 error. What is the error? Undefined symbol D. Oh, sorry. Now it's fine, right? So when I'm executing. So calling derived class constructor, then it's calling base class constructor, then it's calling derived to class constructor.
Okay.
Correct?
It's coming in the order.
Yeah. So it's coming in order like this. So it will be like derived one. First one is going from left to right. First derived one, then we'll call the destructor two. Correct? If I change the order, then what will happen?
First it will call base and then.
Yes, correct. Right. So if I use the delivered one, sorry. Right.
Derived.
Oh, derived one. Sorry. Derived. Fine. No success line. Now it'll call the base one, then derived one, then finally derived two. Got it? How it will work? So to change the sequence, so the change of, sequence, constructor, destructor, sequence will also get changed. So similarly, if I use Alt F5, so you'll check the destructor also. So it'll just like opposite way. Derived two, derived one, then base.
Okay.
Got the concept?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. I think I'm done with the topics for today that I have chosen. So you can ask your doubts now, whatever doubts you have. Yes, Lakshna, you can ask your doubts.
I'm searching for the doubts.
Okay. So I think friend class are easy now, right? So you can work on that.
Yeah.
And these are important, right? As I've shown you, right? So because it's not a member function, so that is important. because we can use OB plus 100 and 100 plus OB, right? So that if we are using with the help of member function, it will give error. If you're using friend, because that's not a member function, so it will be just like a simple function we are calling outside. Right? So there are many situations like that when we are using a friend function instead of directly a class member. So that's a tricky part.
Yeah.
So if you have no doubts, then I will assign more assignments.
Okay.
Okay.
Then you'll get more and more doubts.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay with that. So see, whenever you are completing the assignment, just drop me out mail. So if I'm free, then I will simply reply, right? At the
Okay.
same time.
Okay.
Right. So with the help of friend functions, overload all the operators again.
Okay.
Right. Overload all the operators. Along with new and delete. These are important operators. That's what I'm telling.
Okay. I'll do that. Okay.
Yeah. It's easy actually, right? If you're not getting any idea, just Google it. You will get the idea. If it still is there is problem, just drop me a mail. I will find it out. Right?
Okay.
I will fix it. Yeah. So with the help of friend functions, overload all the operators. Right? Now, what you need to do here is one thing is done. What we've seen apart from this today, I think friend functions, friend classes, and this object. Okay, fine. Yeah. Use class concept and function overloading.
Okay.
Use function overloading. Do some R&D on virtual functions,
Okay.
and pure virtual functions.
Okay.
You know virtual function, right? We have already discussed it, right? So let's say we have one base class and we have one derived class, correct? So in base class we have, let's say, function set values, and again in derived class we have the same function set values, correct? So let's say in implementing set values, right? So I forgot to implement the set values in derived class, so it will directly take the base class value, base class function implementation, right? So that is the concept of virtual functions.
Okay.
Correct. So similarly, we have pure virtual functions. So pure virtual functions can be declared with the help of, just like when we are declaring, right? When we are declaring the definition, so it should be declared like function name, then equals to 0. That will declaration for pure virtual functions. So just get the idea how the pure virtual function and virtual function will behave. This is a very important concept in C++. Right. So that's a part of polymorphism. Correct. So many forms we have. Right. So just yeah, I think 2 assignments are okay for today because you have still your assignments left, right? I think both of these settings okay, right? So let me send you mail, right? 1 second.